Hello, I'm Jamie Cannibal and this is Budman. The story we're doing today is Disc of Thrones, The Chronicles of Chronic. Episode 5. I'm sorry for last episode 4 being really short. Not going to be the case with episode 5. This is a long one. Could end up in 3 parts. Alright? The episode's called The Sandy Wastes of the South. Magnus was in charge of making catapults. There was a lot of big elm trees nearby and he had organised a force to chop them down and was at the head of making mobile catapults. There, to the side of the Elmwood Forest, was a little hill with a shrine. An obelisk marked the centre. Chronic walked to it to read the markings. As he entered the stone circle, his ears rang like an alarm trigger. From the pit at the foot of the obelisk, 3 creatures began to approach him. One was a zombie who was chained to the obelisk. The other 2 were skeletons with powerful blue shine to their eyes. Chronic drew his sword, and Arthas tried to distract one as Chronic parried blows. He drew toward them, and one at a time shattered the bone in their legs to each warrior. And then he did this to the skeleton. The skeleton shattered to sand and convexed back toward the obelisk. Once there it rematerialised and the skeleton reformed. It had a new weapon, evil looking armour, and this time, but still a skeleton. Chronic stepped closer and dismembered the zombie in 3 even parts. It slid to its dead fleshy end, but as it touched the floor, it dematerialised. Light shone out of the obelisk's engraved letters, and 2 skeletons carried themselves to the obelisk and touched the obsidian stone. As they did, the power within the obelisk charged into them, their thin bony bodies covered up with the flesh from the zombie. The now undead warrior raised his fresh blade and swung hard at Chronic. It was blocked by Paranoia. She had appeared from nowhere, just out to outparry a skeletal lich with a dark blade. Chronic got a savage blow to the undead lich and beheaded the one with the blade. As he did this, the colour in the eyes of the warrior exploded around them in smoke and ash. The other warrior lifted his warhammer and swung. Chronic ducked. Paranoia dodged, and Arthas swallowed. The lich warrior looked confused. He was sure he had a weapon. He looked at its enemy. They were hiding behind each other. It then looked at its hands. The blue light drew out of its head into its hand, and it reached out and he caught Paranoia's arm. She screamed. The light burned her. Chronic pulled her back away from the warrior. She was bleeding out her ears and eyes. Chronic rested her up against one of the stones and then picked up his sword and approached the warrior. The monster began to laugh. Chronic reached striking distance and sliced through the lich warrior without the power that he used on Paranoia. He was no match for the true warrior. Chronic drew up to the obelisk. The symbols read, "Pass the test of the dead man and you will travel far." He wondered about it for a while. He went back to Paranoia. She wasn't in a good state. He picked her up and carried her back down the hill. He took her to the pirate maester. After a few hours, she died. The army had their first burial of a leader. They built a grave on the beach and set it alight. Magnus and Chronic looked hard at the fire. She was a good assassin, Magnus said. Aye, one of the best, Chronic said. They muttered about a few things they had all got up to when they all socialised, which when you had spent the last year with these people, you made attachments. Chronic sat looking at the ashes. He picked up a stone and threw it out to the ocean. He somewhere heard Paranoia's voice. That's my king. He smiled, and then thought about how totally pointless him going to the stones was. He knew there had been something, a trap, there. Always is. But then, for no reward, he was disappointed. It was just a pointless fight with the undead for no gain other than to be told if you pass a test, you will go far. That's all. He inspected the catapults. All seemed in order. Moving them north for a few hundred miles wasn't going to be easy, but he had the men. Magnus reported that there would be 8 catapults and 4 wall ladders, a battering ram and 5 ballistas for anything big. Chronic gave a top up to Magnus. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, Chronic said. Thanks, sire. One more thing, we are here. There is some caves just round the bay, used for smugglers. I happen to know your friend White goes there from time to time, said Magnus. Chronic walked down the beach to the hillside. There was a little boat gully leading to a tavern built into the cave. End of part 1.